Last but by no means least today, we have Nijoe Joseph, who's a partner at Stevenson Harwood and is a banking and finance expert with a particular focus on structured finance and a lot of experience in the Middle East. And as he said, he's going to talk a lot about innovation, which is an important topic and not one that we've covered so far. So over to you.
Thank you, Clive. Thank you, TMS. Unlike T and I know the banes of being the last speaker is that I'm the one that's standing between the drinks and yourself. But please don't worry. I too belong to the Henry VIII School of Public Speaking. As Henry VIII told his wives, I shall not keep you long. This session is all about breaking barriers to attracting ship finance. The news lately has been that the Singapore Shipping Association, Singapore Ships Registry, has taken on blockchain as one of the aspects on which they want to base their ship registration on. Similarly, the Cypriot Parliament has passed regulations whereby the shipping industry of Cyprus takes on blockchain to actually innovate its shipping industry. The Philippines has launched on another innovative platform whereby the seafarers' documentation, etc., are going to be based on blockchain. So there's a lot of these talks about blockchain. I've had a few people outside today saying blockchain is the future, but what the heck is it, right? So in the space of about 10 minutes, and pardon me if I rush or oversimplify matters, but we're going to talk through what blockchain is, what are the potentials of it for the shipping industry, and potential pitfalls if it's not implemented correctly. Quickly now, the current shipping transactional ecosystem from a supply chain basis shows that you need significant paper-based documentation, physical inspection of those documentation, and a long chain of intermediaries to actually get from point A to point B. This hasn't changed since the mid-80s. And the problems with this is that no single party can access all aspects of the supply chain. There's no accountability for the inefficiencies of the parties, and there's no accountabilities for fraud or lost or stolen cargo. An estimate puts in as $30 billion are lost every year on stolen or loss of cargo, and these are actually pushed down as prices onto the consumers. Who is responsible? We don't know yet. Their reliance on multiple brokers and other intermediaries to facilitate processes, they also inflate costs and time taken to complete a process. Ship finance is no different. You have small to medium-sized owners, as we've just heard, find it difficult to obtain reasonable financing or refinancing terms. Why? Most of the time it's because the balance sheet of the borrower isn't pretty good. There are varying valuations of underlying assets. What is the actual worth of a charter party that is the underlying contract? Is it sustainable? And very often other vague reasons come up. Now, all in all, what we see both in the supply chain and in the ship finance context is that there's a general lack of trust. You spend money, you spend time, you spend effort, all trying to establish trust before business is transacted between one party to the other. A solution to this has been seen to be as blockchains, which is enabled through smart contracts. Blockchain, in its generic and the most original definition, is a distributed, trustless public ledger. We'll go through that one by one. Distributed means that there is no central server or there's no central authority running things. There are many computers doing combined work, producing an output which is the result of heavy computations and calculations based on algorithms. And being distributed, you don't have to wait for a party to actually give consent to move ahead. An example is the BitTorrent regime. I know Captain Zarir has been talking about BitTorrent regimes all his life, but he's never downloaded an illegal movie or a music file, but he just knows about it. The example for BitTorrent is that you've got multiple players who actually produce, who actually have got music or files stored on a similar platform. They all contribute towards you to downloading a movie if you ever use those sites. It's the same with what is blockchain. You don't have a central authority, it is distributed. Trustless. Now, this is the most important point of it. As we said, because there is no single actor in the system, trust is distributed among different nodes. There are multiple players, thousands and thousands of people called miners who sit around verifying a transaction. So in order to actually trust a transaction or distrust a transaction, more than 50% of these thousands and thousands of people must concede that something is wrong. So when, as we'll see how the blockchain functions, trust becomes an integral part of the system already, and you do not need to bargain, investigate, or invest time to generate trust. Trust is a given when a blockchain is actually implemented. Public, as we know, it can be examined by anyone. Entries and IDs that are associated with quantity and value, that are open for everyone to see. You do not need to access or give special permissions for somebody to come up and observe a blockchain. There aren't fees for this. You're joining up on a platform as either a miner or as an observer. All of these things can be easily accessible to people who want to look at the information. And simple, what's a ledger? It's a notebook. It's a notebook that records any types of quantity against data. It could be, in the shipping context, this data could be asset valuations against the ship owner, class certificates against the class society, charter rates, profit loss, etc., etc. These are all recorded against IDs, and you've got a ledger. So blockchain is nothing but an electronic notebook that is distributed across the people who want to see it, and they add on to information, verifying or non-verifying what is already on the platform. How does this work? Now, this is where the key element comes in. It works with what is called a public-private key cryptography. Basically, in simple terms, and again, sorry for oversimplifying it, but imagine two passwords. You're given your own private password with which you can enter data, and you've got a public password which is similar for everybody else, who can come onto the system and actually see what is the data that has been input by a person with a private password. Now, the key to this is that the person with the private password, he puts in a message. Now, this could be anything that relates to whether it's a charter party contract, it could be a bill of lading, it could be an MOA, anything. They put in a message, convey the message, and they sign off with the electronic signature, which is called a hash function. The other computers in the blockchain ecosystem goes ahead to verify, did party A really did give out the message? Did he have the right to give out the message? Was the message right in terms of what the truth behind it was when it was known? And they verify this using a public key. Now, the beauty of the blockchain is that you can only verify who was the one that made the statement, but you cannot re-engineer the private password. So you cannot go back and disrupt the system. And what happens then is that there are millions and millions of computers who compete doing the cryptographic work to verify each person's information in terms of a block. And each time that they verify an information, it gets added onto the chain. So in simple terms, if an owner wants to sell a vessel, he puts the vessel up with the valuations, etc., etc. If a buyer wants to come along, he puts in his contributions. Yes, this is the price, this is what we want. He wants to verify if the insurers have got proper insurance on it. He wants to verify if the bankers feel that this is all okay. Each person puts in their information, and the miners or the computers go ahead verifying this information, adding on to the blockchain. And what happens is that you've got a single chain of blockchains that triggers a transaction, and the longest blockchain chain is the valid one. Because as I said before, 50% of the nodes actually need to accept this. And why do people do this activity of verifying somebody else's transaction? Because they get rewarded for it. Computers who do the work for forming the blocks and verifying it get paid in certain cryptocurrency, which is the basis of it. So you've got Bitcoin-based Bitcoin-based blockchain, or Ethereum-based blockchains, or Ethereum Lite. So you've got different cryptocurrencies underlying it, and the people who mine it get rewarded in that cryptocurrency and a small transactional fees to actually keep them motivated to actually act on the blockchain itself. Now, blockchain by itself doesn't solve anything other than other than making a mode of currency which is now slowly becoming obsolete simply because the world regulations don't seem to match up with the innovation that's happening. But smart contracts is a way that can help the shipping industry. Now, smart contracts is not something new. It was posited early in the 1990s itself, but it could not take on for ship finance matters because banks insisted on seeing wet ink documents. So you could have electronic documents being signed off between the parties, but in order for finance to happen, there was an actual need for physical documentation to be presented. Smart contracts are nothing but self-executing contracts. So upon achieving a certain condition, what could happen is that the contracts get automatically executed, and then the flow of the consequences, whether positive or negative for the parties, flow directly without anybody else's intervention or requirement for permission. This is, in a nutshell, what happens in the shipping industry. You've got exporters, export authorities, port officials, import and customs officials, financiers, the Jingbank. All of these people form together with any transaction, give or take a few. Now, smart contracts can solve these issues using a blockchain mechanism, and a closed blockchain mechanism where various documents get uploaded onto the system and they form the transaction standard document. So you've got MOAs, bills of lading, charter parties, etc. These will all be standard software, and they don't need to be amended each time. The relevant contract is first published by the party who wants to enter into the contract, and thereafter, as the blockchain moves ahead, each party who wants to transact gets in on the act, approving, validating their own messages, and the blockchain moves ahead. Because there's auto-execution, there's a simultaneous uploading for information for all the parties to see. And this reduces the intermediaries. This reduces the need for validation by a third party to see if the information actually provided is true or not. An advantage of a smart contract is its efficiency. As we said, that because there is no a smart contract with blockchain is that because of there being no intermediaries, you do not have to spend the time and the money to go through various brokerages, various sort of other verifying authorities to actually get to the result that we wanted. There is transparency because it's a public ledger. You can always see at any given point in time the status of a particular transaction. It's secure because it's encrypted to begin with, and if anybody needs to actually manipulate a system, you should be looking at invalidating an entire code of blockchains, which would take, in the rough estimate, was like millions of years to actually do, given the computing power that goes into to create a single level of blockchain. That being said, you could also bribe your way and bribe everybody else, but that'll cost you a lot more money to actually to do that, where the ecosystem doesn't allow for one single authority to give the permission to have it manipulated. So that again adds to the security. It saves a lot of costs because because procedural delays are virtually none. As soon as the conditions which are implicit in your blockchain's protocol gets fulfilled, it moves on to the next stage. It doesn't ask you for shall we stop, shall we move? No, it just moves ahead without any break. The market, again, is the same. People can access the blockchain technology freely. There are low barriers to entry, will increase competitions. Parties can develop direct communications without the requisite intermediaries. It's a decentralized system that will be built on the blockchain technology, an open marketplace for financiers, owners, shippers, and carriers to actually meet and speak with each other directly. The disadvantages, unfortunately, are there as well, because shipping is such a unique industry where you've got unique and specific contractual terms which can't actually be put in binary systems or in software languages. So there needs to be worked out how blockchains cater to these sort of unique maritime-related tweaks. Flexibility as well. Well, there isn't any contract which I have actually worked on whereby it's gone on a flowchart process. You sign, you send, you get the money, you get the boat. No, it doesn't happen that way. There's a lot of flexibility that happens between the parties when they transact, and this flexibility in a closed sort of ecosystem, sealed ecosystem, doesn't actually help. So that tweaking again needs to be done. But the biggest challenge right now is that there is no current government or jurisdiction which has implemented smart contracts and blockchain from a ship finance perspective. Singapore will be the first one, and we will see how that actually takes shape and takes life before that can be spread to the other dimensions. Also, there is a demonizing of cryptocurrencies that is going on across the world right now, which is rather unfortunate, because I don't think, maybe it's just because of the way the world is moving ahead. People don't want to relate to something that is new and innovative to something that exists like currency, like conventional currency. But that has dealt a blow to many a great innovation. I know a few companies in Dubai which has followed blockchain mechanisms in its logistics services. I've had the good opportunity to share a platform with a few of them. They've stopped. But that's to say that it's just a temporary stoppage, and I think the way that the innovation actually will carry on, and Singapore, countries like Singapore and the UAE through Dubai will show its way forward, and eventually we will all get to where we want. That, in 15 minutes, is what blockchain and shipping can do, and if there's any questions, Clive will answer them for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nijoe.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's fascinating what new technology will do, and I think over the next few years we're going to see dramatic changes in all elements of